Thank you. Thank you for, first of all, of having me here, Burak, from the evening at Helsinki. So we're at that same time zone. But yeah, so we were originally called Rental, and now we're called Twice Commerce. And there's many reasons for the new name, but I think the most simplest reason is that we've just grown to be so much more than rental. So originally we were a rental platform. We really focused on rentals, but we always knew that our core mission is to help extend the life cycle of goods, but in a way that ends up being more profit towards the merchants that sell those goods or the access to those goods. Now, as we have expanded to sales of refurbished goods and secondhand, those 4 letters of our old name started to kind of limit a little bit of our brand. And we tried to figure out what really under re-commerce, something that describes that in an easy and understandable way. And then we understood that it's at the end of the day all about enabling someone not to sell stuff once, but twice or more. So we help you sell stuff more than once. And we think that Twice captures that perfectly. It's about doing something twice, because if you can do something twice, you can do it as many times as you want. So I think was it Peter Thiel who talks about going from 0 to 1 being hard. We know that that's hard, but so is going from once to twice in the world of retail. And if you can go from once to twice, then all of the rest is easy. And we really want to help you get to twice.
So what problem does Twice Commerce solve for the merchants looking to start or grow the rental or circle commerce? And what is the new strategy?
Sure. So when someone goes from linear commerce or from commerce to re-commerce, I think there's a couple of things that happen that makes those existing commerce platforms like Shopify or Magento maybe a little bit harder for the use case. In terms of what happens with order lifecycle is that it's not anymore pick, pack, and ship operation, but actually it's pick, pack, and ship, and then receive. So usually you end up receiving a lot more stuff. And if it's buyback driven, you start with the receive, and then you have to do something for the stuff in order to sell it out. So you have this reverse logistics that's come into play. And that's where we, as a fit for purpose commerce platform for re-commerce, help merchants handle that inflow of goods, whether it's by design as part of a rental or whether it's buying stuff from the market. On top of that, as you start to do this circular order management, you end up getting back goods that have been once owned by someone. And that means that every good, essentially every item, becomes a collectible. It has a unique usage history. It has a unique condition. Thus, it has unique value and price points in the market. And that has a lot of implications to your inventory management, because all of a sudden, you have 2 iPhones, but they're not equivalent. They're not the same anymore. So one might be almost good as new condition, and the other one might have a little bit more scratches on the surface. So you have to price them differently, even though technically they are the same product. So all of a sudden, you have all of these complexities that you have to be able to manage and price your inventory on an article level rather than a aggregate stock keeping unit. And these are the things that we solve for the merchants. But other than that, we are a commerce platform like anyone else. We offer merchants a ready-made online store, inventory management, product catalog management, everything that anyone needs to start, grow, and run their re-commerce business.
So how did you understand that the problem facing, especially the merchant facing this hard issue? Or what are some most interesting merchants using Twice Commerce or rental earlier days?
Sure. So actually, we kind of built it for ourselves in the early days. So we had a customer that wanted to rent power banks at a gaming event, and we called through all of the payment terminal and commerce platform providers pretty much in Europe at that time, and asked for a simple question that we just want to rent these things. We don't really want to sell them. We kind of need things like deposits and recurring charges and all of these things that are part of renting something as an event. And everyone told us that that could not be done. And we, as founders, we had a technical background, so we knew that with Stripe and other payment services, we could actually build that. So we ended up building this MVP of our rental system for ourselves for that specific event. And from that point, we kind of understood that this is actually needed elsewhere also. So we ended up going to the largest ski resort in Nordics, walking in, asking them that, how do you actually manage your rentals nowadays? What kind of things you use? And we ended up seeing a lot of paper contracts, a lot of manual payments, a lot of things done in a manual way, or then entrepreneurs kind of combining 5 to 10 different solutions, some proprietary, custom built, some existing booking calendars or whatnot, in order to somehow digitalize their business. And we kind of looked at that and understood that this is extremely underserved market. And at the same time, when we talked with the end users, the consumers, everyone wanted rentals or everyone wanted secondhand. So kind of the demand was there, and also the supply side really wanted to offer those. So we started to look at this more on a system level and figured out that maybe it's not about supply, maybe it's not about demand, maybe it's actually the geeks like us that who just have not built the software infrastructure that is needed to facilitate such transaction where it's used goods or pre-loved goods or rentals that are being done. So that's how we kind of ended up there. And in terms of what are the funniest or craziest things where we've seen it, I think if you can think about it, we've seen it as a model.
So what are the most merchants using Twice Commerce nowadays?
So if you're asking in terms of numbers, we have over 20,000 merchants already in the platform. And then majority of those, if we look at the transactions going through the platform, most of those are still existing rental industries. So there's a lot of sporting goods. We have customers like Decathlon from UK that are renting bikes and various other sporting goods to their customers. But now we're seeing, as we are more and more supporting secondhand sales and refurbished sales, we're seeing more other industries also take off. So electronics and audio and video equipment, for example, and clothing, of course, is a big growing market.
So how do you see this circular economy, commerce industry evolving in the next 5 years' time, or rental, second, also hand sales?
Sure. Well, we are big believers that, similar to e-commerce, there's roles for the micro merchants, and then there's a big role for the existing incumbents. So we are seeing a kind of a wave of new generation of merchants, millennials and Gen Zs, whose business idea and brand is from day zero designed for selling used goods or renting them out. So they can be the ones like Grover, Swappy, there's Spring in UK. There's a lot of these kind of emerging bigger brands, or Camera Store is a good example. Then at the same time, we're seeing larger brands like Decathlon trying to figure out how can they be more sustainable, how can they kind of provide customers with better value, better access to goods with lower price points, making, for example, in Decathlon's case, sporting more accessible and more sustainable. Now, if you zoom out and think about how the change will happen, there's a couple of things that need to happen. First of all, platform providers like us, we need to remove a lot of friction from there. We need to help merchants actually kind of operate a world where everything that they push out ends up coming back to them. And they need a lot of help in terms of software there. There's also a other side of operational things. So we, for example, only provide software. There's great companies like ACS Clothing in Glasgow that help then large merchants figure out how do you do refurbishment of clothes at scale. So it's kind of a beautiful dance, I think, between software providers and infrastructure providers like us that only do bits, and then actual operational operators like ACS Clothing, for example, enabling the fact that, you know, if I need to repair an iPhone or repair a piece of fabric, those are a little bit of a different thing. So it's harder to maybe scale horizontally there than in linear commerce. So we see a lot of specialization, except we believe in the software layer, we can serve pretty much anyone when it comes to this.
So how many years passed launching this venture, by the way?
So we launched our MVP in 2019. So now it being 23, so it's 4 years roughly. Of course, there were COVID and everything in between, and there's a lot of learnings there. but it's about 40 years of us looking at re-commerce and understanding the order life cycles and article life cycles and simplifying that into a commerce platform.
So what motivated you start this venture, I mean, this company, rather than joining a startup as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think for us, it is kind of tagging all of the things that we wanted to do. So we always wanted to build a technology company. We kind of wanted to work at Google or Apple, but we figured out it's easier to build one than to apply into one. The other one really for us was that we wanted to kind of empower circular economy, because we felt that commerce is extremely interesting. We love commerce. There's kind of all of our world is kind of surrounded by stuff, and we kind of the things that make us who we are. That sofa there it's kind of you've made a conscious decision to acquire that, and those bring a lot of value to our life. But at the same time, we want to figure out how do we do it so that it doesn't come at the cost of the planet, because it is obvious that we need to do something about our consumption, otherwise we're going to overconsume the whole world. So for us, it was that if we are able to figure out this decoupling of economical growth from consumption of virgin material, we would be working on an extremely interesting problem space, and then every revenue dollar that we make represents improvement in the world. So once we kind of understood that, and that we could do this at scale by building commerce infrastructure, I think we were hooked from that point on. That this is the thing that when you wake up and you look at your dashboard and you see a merchant doing more sales, you're helping someone earn their living, and at the same time you're helping them earn that living in a more sustainable way. So I think it's just checks all of the boxes that we wanted to build in the world.
I mean, you tell very easy approach, something that seems to be easy, but I think there are challenges. What excites you about building a company, and what are the daily challenges or struggles that you face?
Yeah, I think there's too many to list them in a short and a half an hour. But I think, of course, like probably this goes hand in hand with any venture capital backed like hyper growth company. But you're trying to do a lot of growth in an extremely short time. But for us, it's not only VC math that is forcing us to do that. It's also the kind of feeling that the world doesn't have time to wait. So we don't have 20 years to figure out how do we empower circular economy. So you're trying to take something that might realistically take 20 years, and you try to squeeze that into 5 to 10 years. So that brings a lot of challenges when it comes to kind of you have to front load a lot of investment in R&D, a lot of investment in marketing, and you have to make a lot of big bets on a daily basis. So I think the challenges really is that how do you do these leading bets? How do you do them bold enough and big enough without losing trace that you actually need to build value to your customers and so on. So it is this kind of how do you squeeze 20 years into 5 years in a way that you don't end up being kind of or how you're kind of efficient with all of your investing and bets. I think that's the challenge, and it's every day. Kind of if you try to squeeze 20 years into 5 years, it's almost like today I have to do 4 days worth of improvements. So I think that's the challenge. It's kind of every time you have to every email has to be 4 emails, if that makes sense.
So how are the board meetings? We have a recent news that Sam Altman has in a successful company has been fired by the board. So is your boards also difficult? How is your board members, and how are your connections and also relationship with the board members?
Well, I think I think I'm extremely lucky in terms of the board. So we have extremely supporting board, but it's at the end of the day, it is probably something that you have to every day earn or so. But our board meetings, in my opinion, are working in the way how it is fit for our stage of company, where essentially it's our job as the operative leadership to make sure that we are capable of presenting the business in a way that we can ask for help. And the board is there to help us, and not to just check our numbers and tell go faster, go slower. So I think we're doing a great job if we can go to the board with clear asks and clear ways of asking for help, whether it's network, whether it's more investments, or whether it's guidance. And for us, it has been working extremely well. Our board members are kind of also tapping into the same belief. So for us, it is working. We monthly kind of compile all of our numbers and insights and wins and trials, and then we try to ask for help in a constructive way.
So it is said that the startup's journey is a roller coaster like. So how do you motivate yourself in the hard days?
I think it's, for me, probably everyone has their personal ways of how to go about it. For me, it is at the end of the day the company vision and mission that drives me forward. It's kind of remembering that who are you doing this for? In our case, we have a quite strong mission also driving it in helping the world become a more sustainable place in terms of sustainability. So I think there's this saying that we rent the lands from our children, or that societies grow kind of greatly when old men plant trees whose shade they're not able to enjoy themselves. So I think for me, that's kind of at the end of the day, during those hard days, I actually try to remember that I'm not doing it for myself. I'm doing it for other people and the people that come after us. So at least for me, that works. And then those are the ways of how to get forward even on the tough days. And at the end of the day, also, as part of being a founder, is that if you've been successful, you've been able to hire great people that are a lot smarter, a lot more capable than you are. So getting up in the morning, it's like any team sport. You're not getting up for yourself, you're getting up for the team. So that helps also.
So is there a work and personal life balance, or do you believe in that approach, or do you do another approach?
I do believe in work-life separation and balance, to be honest. But my reasoning comes from the place where I believe that if you're extremely tired, you end up solving extremely incremental problems. So you're kind of in the mode that you have 1,000 tabs open in your screen, and you do incremental problem solving. And people that are tired do small problem solving. Now, people that are more recovered and have more energy start to solve wicked problems, because wicked problems, the ones where you're not able to map them out like discretely, but you just have like a real option pointing that way. In order to operate there, I think you need a lot of energy, a lot of headspace in order to figure out what's the big enough move, what's something that moves the needle on a large scale. So I feel that you're not able to do that kind of moves unless you take care of yourself, unless you're recovered, and so on. So that's a big motivator for me in terms of work-life balance, because if you just work over 24 hours, you end up kind of going to that incremental mode. And if you're trying to squeeze 20 years into 4 or 5, that doesn't happen with incremental moves. That happens with big bets that are in the large magnitude, and you need to be able to kind of do those. So that's my belief. So in terms of recovery,
we have seen lots of successful companies coming from Finland in last decade. So what is in your point of view, secret behind this successful unicorns and startups?
Yeah, I think we've been lucky enough that we have quite a nice ecosystem, that we have, the success stories of Nokia and the ones after, from Supercell to, Smartly, Volt and such. So we have a quite nice ecosystem and knowledge on how to build scalable large companies doing large impacts in their own industries. But at the same time, we're still a relatively small nation. We're 6 million people. So once you go into the startup ecosystem, it's almost like everyone's 1 or 2 phone calls away. So it helps, because then you can tap into the success or knowledge of other people more easily. Another thing might be that I feel that Finns, maybe by nature, we have X amount of grit. We just push through the hard days. And also, we kind of, if we have a fault, it's probably the one that, our financial models, they are what we actually believe that the numbers will be, or even less. So if you look at a Finnish company's financial model, you should 2x the top line, because we actually, report the numbers we believe we have, which might have contributed into our success, that we really, really take it seriously when we take other people's money and build large companies. I don't know, maybe that's it. There's probably a lot better answers to that, but that's my 2 cents.
So how is the entrepreneurship relationships? Do you help and support, assist each other as a founders? Are there any meetings or irregular meetings or WhatsApp groups that you are part of?
Yeah, definitely. There are unofficial and official ones, but there's great, ecosystem players like the Finnish startup community that facilitate not only for founders, but also for the key operational people in scale-ups and startups. So you might have a meetup of, head of finances, or meetup of the COOs, and so on. So there's a lot of knowledge sharing between the companies, and it's facilitated by great ecosystem players like the Finnish startup community. So that kind of 2 phone call away world that really exists, it's maybe you have to overcome yourself, rather than there's no barriers in the system. So you just pick up the phone and people are more than willing to help. So, and to be honest, I think there's a lot of great entrepreneurs that have built the way to kind of a more international ecosystem. So really there starts to be nice bridges to all over the world from the more kind of earlier success stories. So it is a great environment to build a startup, in my opinion.
Does weather affect also the success of startups, or entrepreneurs' mindset? Because I know that Finland is also cold and it is dark in the winter. Does it affect your daily life?
Well, certainly, maybe now it's November, it's quite dark already outside, so maybe there's less distractions coming through the window, maybe. But yeah, I think it probably has its pros and cons. It is really it's easier to sit inside and ship the work, but at the same time, of course, in a more sunny environment, you might be able to I don't know, recover faster. But there's probably studies on that, but I feel that, well, if it's something, it's a pro rather than a con.
I know that you have difficulties in the first year or in the first months of raising money. Did you have any rejections, and how did you overcome these kinds of rejections? How many rejections from the VCs that you have also faced?
Yeah, well, I usually, it's nice to look at things as challenges, because then you figure out how to overcome them and they become opportunities. But it is my general belief that every time you go fundraise, you should be prepared to meet over 50 VCs or even close to 100, because at the end of the day, if you're truly trying to build something big, you're trying to squeeze that 20 years into 4. Venture capital is probably the only asset class that is willing to serve that kind of dreams and ambition. But at the same time, fundraising it's not supposed to be hard necessarily, but it kind of still is. So for me, the assumption always is that fundraising is hard work, and it should be such, because it makes sure that big ideas get funded and things that have that upside inside them. So for me, I wouldn't say that we've seen challenges in fundraising. We've seen the same effort as anyone, in the sense that no money, grows on trees and just falls on your lap. Or if it does, maybe you should be a little bit questioning, why is the money falling into my lap without any effort? So I think it's a healthy sign if you have to work for fundraising.
I see. So what books or podcasts recently do you find time to read and listen? So
I think I always say the same thing, but I really love to listen to Acquired. It's one of my favorite podcasts when it comes to venture, because in that podcast they do a great job in going to these deep dives behind the stories of like Walmart or Costco or Nvidia or even Shopify. I think those are great episodes in understanding not only how those companies were built, that roller coaster story, but also a little bit about the story behind the founders and kind of the decisions that they made. So I'm hooked into Acquired. I listen to pretty much every episode if I have the time. And then also I try to, get in a couple of podcasts which wouldn't be only business oriented, just to kind of sometimes have your brain somewhere else. And there, to be honest, I listen to Conan O'Brien, It's a Friend. It's just it is a great kind of, maybe it's a combination of both. Depending on the guest, sometimes you even learn something about business there.
Tuomo, if you could have a dinner with any entrepreneur, alive or historical, who would you pick?
Oh man, that's hard. Maybe now I would really like to sit down with Tobi Lütke, the founder of Shopify, to be honest. I'm a big fan of how Shopify has kind of built their story and what they're trying to enable in the world. So I would really probably want to sit down with Tobi. That's probably currently out of the live ones. Of course, the world, kind of the history is full of great entrepreneurs. It starts to be quite hard to choose which one from there. I think it is the ones that dream big and change the world in one lifetime. It's a big thing.
What is the best and most important business advice that you have received, and what would you like to give the entrepreneurs listening to you?
Well, I think there's actually two that I have to probably mention. The first one is that I think US equivalent is that there's no free lunch, but at the same time, there's also kind of the idea that no number or no diagram improves by itself. If you look at a financial graph or an Excel, every improvement in numbers is someone somewhere working extremely hard. So if you look at your financial model and you see an improving graph or number and you can't tell who that is, then you have a problem. Either you're delusional or you don't know your company enough well. I think that's been a great advice. It kind of acknowledges how hard things are. The other one really is about kind of passion. So if you're a passionate entrepreneur, maybe going to that recovery side, that passion is like fire. It's a great servant, not a good master. So you have to kind of learn how do you take that passion and you turn that into fuel that you control, rather than you allow that to kind of drive you as the master, because that way you will end up burning yourself out. So I think those two advices, remembering that passion is like fire, and then the fact that nothing improves without someone working extremely hard somewhere, usually means that you're able to keep your legs on the ground, even if your head is going to the clouds.
Tuomo, thank you very much. I enjoyed this conversation, and thank you for taking your time and giving lots of great answers.
Thank you for having me, Burak.